All right, and we're live. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show today. Another episode of Chain Breakers. And today we're going to be diving into a story, again, with a radical transformation over the course of time, and one that proves that nobody is too far gone. Today, our guest, we have the episode is titled The Journey to Cobblestone. You'll understand what that means as we kind of get through. This is the story of a wild, chaotic life filled with drugs, crazy choices, zero room for God, hitting rock bottom in your brokenness. Every path led to nothing until everything changed through Jesus, finding sobriety, purpose, and now serving in full-time ministry. I am super excited because this guy, I've been hanging with him down at the drop-in center. Everybody, Dustin Vance. What's up, bro?
Hey, Eric. Good, Eric. How are you?
Man, I am not too bad. I am enjoying a colder, chillier Thursday. If you guys are listening, today is Thursday, but you're going to be hearing this tomorrow at Friday at noon for your lunch hour testimony. And so we're coming to you live the day before that. So, but anyway, well, tell me how your day is going, brother, and we'll get into our into your part.
Yeah. So today's already started out great. We've got several guys at the drop-in center. I had some of the brothers from Whole Truth Ministries come in. We recorded a live to post on Facebook earlier, just about transformation and where they were at years ago, and what Whole Truth has meant to them and where they are today. So I kind of did my own little side project podcast this morning, maybe trying to take some notes from your page book there. So, but other than that, we've had some great guys come in. They've gotten showers, they've gotten a warm meal. They've really opened up today. We've even had some people share some amazing stories about what God's doing in their life, even though they're still in the streets. So, man, that's what makes my job worth every day, waking up and coming in.
Amen. But you know what? You wouldn't be where you're at if it wasn't for the goodness of God in your life.
Come on, right?
How about you tell us about that?
Yeah. So where do you want me to start at? Kind of.
Man, we're on your back. We want to know the tea. I guess that's the word out there, right? We want to know how has God moved in your life from start to finish.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah. So, well, growing up, my dad was praise and worship leader at our church. So I grew up with God, the knowledge of God. I didn't know what a relationship with Jesus looked like. So when I was younger, we went to a Baptist church. Little small church, maybe 35 people in all of attendance. And I just didn't feel like I fit in. It was a bunch of older folks, and I was 12, 13 years old. And I didn't feel like I fit in there. I didn't feel like I fit in at school. I wasn't good in sports. I wasn't really good in my classes. I just kind of felt like I was on the outskirts of life, and I didn't know where I belonged. So when I was a kid, like I say, I hit my rebellious phase, probably 13, 14 years old. I started smoking cigarettes. I started drinking. I started really rebelling against my parents mostly. And that included the church. That included, stopping going to church. And like I say, it was a Baptist church. It was a lot of hellfire and brimstone. And I just, at 13 years old, my brain couldn't wrap around that. And if I couldn't be good enough to appease the hellfire and brimstone God, then I would be the best bad that I could be. And that's the direction I went for 22 years of my life. I really took off, and I hit the ground running with drugs and alcohol, starting out with weed, a lot of alcohol, and graduating into cocaine and pills, and then ultimately methamphetamines and heroin towards my later years.
But you said you got started around 13 years old. You said
around 13, yeah,
in Hillsboro, right?
Yes. So I grew up in a little small town called Hillsboro. It's not a lot to do in Hillsboro, and with the again, I never really had friends, so the one or two people that I did hang out with, once we found drugs, we didn't really need anybody else. Like that was what connected us. That was what made us compatible with each other. Was we could sit and do drugs together and probably not even really like each other, but as long as we were high, it was okay. And being somebody that never felt comfortable in their own skin, I would do anything that I could to make me feel like I was anything but me. And that's where I connected with the one or two friends that I did have. Because I was just Hillsboro. I mean, it was very cliquey in school, and I just didn't fit in with the with any of the genres. So once I found smoking weed kind of made me acceptable, that's what I did, and it just moved on from there.
Okay. So high school years sound okay. And then you graduate high school. Did you go to college, or what was your relationship like with your parents? I know it kind of shifts when you get into the
sure.
17, 18-year-old range. And
yeah. So my high school was kind of a blur. Like I say, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of partying. So I actually enlisted to be in the Marines with a buddy of mine, and we had a leave date and everything. And it come down to my senior year, and I didn't have enough credits to graduate. So I talked to my recruiter, and he said, well, I wouldn't normally suggest this, but if you were to drop out of school at 18 and then jump right into taking your GED classes, you could have your GED by the time your buddy graduates. You guys could still leave on the same leave date, and it would be like, you just graduated, but you'd have a GED instead. So I hated school. That sounded like the best plan ever, right? I get to go ahead and leave school a couple months early, and so that's what I did.
Oh, wow.
I dropped out the day I turned 18. I went in and signed the papers, and the smart me would have jumped right into classes and gotten my GED and got it taken care of, but I didn't, because again, I'm an addict. I'm somebody who needed to feel accepted. So I started hanging out with some other guys who was selling weed, and went over to buy a bag of weed one night, and the guy I was buying weed from said he was going to go rob a store, that I wanted to go with him. And I thought, sure, I've said crazy things before. I don't really think this is really going to happen, but hey, let's go hang out. And sure enough, we go to Hillsboro, and he runs into a store and robs it and comes back out, and we all get busted. So 2 or 3 weeks after my 18th birthday, I caught a first-degree complicity to armed robbery charge. Totally shut down my ability to go to the Marines, and also affected literally the rest of my life with a complicity to armed robbery charge on my record. Not really liking school or work or anything like that anyway, and then also having this on my record, it destroyed me. It really did. So that was my. Most people have a great story of leaving high school and starting their future, and mine went the other direction. Mine was, it really destroyed me. So I got put on probation. Back in the 90s, they had what was called shock and super shock parole. So instead of giving me a prison number, being 18 years old, literally first time I'd ever been in trouble, they saved me from going to prison, and gave me 6 months in the county jail, and then gave me 5 years parole. I was able to complete parole because I started drinking instead of doing drugs. So I was able to pass the tests, drug tests and things like that. So that manipulation really started coming into its own. Like, I was always good at manipulating my parents, but now I had to manipulate the system, the court system, the judges, the probation officers, and that was a lifelong skill that I had to break myself of over the past few years. But I think that's really where I first started to learn to manipulate in the fullest form. So 5 years of parole, I did complete it. I did get off parole, and then as soon as I got off parole, it was off to the races again. I was right back on the drugs, and life took off.
How often did you have to? Was it just the release of being off parole that, or like what was leading? I don't know what time consumption parole is after 4 years. What was the impact after that? Did it start before the parole was up and then trickle
Yeah,
in?
so I was again manipulation to its fullest. So even while I was on parole, I knew certain days I could get high, and then how long it would take till the drug test, and then if I got drug tested on this week, it would be 2 or 3 weeks before the next one. So I can't really say that I quit everything. I just found out how I can manipulate things because again, anything that took me out of who I was as a person was exactly what I needed in my life because I hated myself that much.
Wow. Okay, so that makes so almost the parole kept you somewhat paying attention to because you had to orchestrate it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
once that barrier left, you're off to the races. Now there's no check-ins. It's nobody's ever calling you, actually.
Right.
Okay. So it's like a green light at a stoplight.
Yeah, but that didn't last very long. It was just a few short years before I caught another charge and was back on parole. And then, from there, 22 years of in and out of the system. So it just, like I say, I just keep hearing that word manipulation. Like, that's just who I was. I really can't put a title on anything else I did, but just survive the best I could. And manipulation was how I made that happen.
Gotcha. All right. So that's your 20s, 30s, kind of walk us through.
Oh, yeah. So that was my 20s, and I tried to live a normal life. I tried to stay functional. I had some little jobs here and there. I actually got married, and my marriage didn't last very long, but I tried. I tried to do normal things, and again, because of who I was as a person, I wasn't the marrying person. So I was very selfish and self-centered, and that really come to the surface very quickly. So she was able to leave me in enough time to where it didn't destroy her life, and I moved on. I had a few kids, in and out of relationships, broken relationships. With the brokenness that I only attracted brokenness. So drugs was normally the focus point of every relationship I was in. Again, selfishness and self-centeredness. So everything was about me, and if it wasn't about me, then I had to go. And so relationships would come and go. And then at 27 years old, I finally caught a charge for an assault and went to prison for the first time. And you would have thought that would have opened my eyes, but it didn't. It made me worse. You always hear the stories about prison and what goes on there, and what I saw when I got there was just another way to manipulate people and manipulate my family mostly. And I lived good there because my mom would send me money and people would write me letters, and it was almost like they sympathized for me for being locked up. And I started to feel like maybe I was somebody because now I'm in prison and people were showing me the love that I'd always wanted as a child and never really felt like I got. So I started owning the identity of a convict, of a prisoner, and again, because of who I was as a person, because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. What do they say? Even negative attention is good attention, or it is. Yeah. So that's what I was looking for. If I acted out, if I caught another charge, if I was in the court system, my mom would pay attention to me. My dad would take me to court. My girlfriend would, she would just really love on me a little more and empathize for me and feel sorry for me. And that's what I wanted in life. I wanted people to feel sorry for me because I just didn't feel like I was good enough for anybody. And that's what that brought.
And over and over. So where's God at? And so you have roots at the Baptist church. So did that follow you at any capacity, like in your teenage 20s and?
Oh, sure. So I used to tell people. Yeah. So I used to tell people that, of course, I believed in God. I had to be angry at somebody, right? And that's where I channeled my anger. I hated God. I hated that I served a God that would vengefully punish me and put me in these situations and put me in these places because it was instilled into my head that if I do bad, God's going to do bad to me. So, we'll look at Job. You're just in your Job season. I'm like, 22 years of a Job season. I'm pretty tired of this already. Can we move on? But that was the theology that I had growing up as a child. That I'm a bad person, so God's going to do bad things to me. And we know that that's not the truth, that God's a loving God. God is a forgiving God. And I had to unlearn a lot of my childhood theologies later in life. But at that point in my life, that's what I believed. So I was very angry at God. And I was the more.
Any times in your life where you were drawn to him and like walked up close to it, like maybe in prison or somewhere else where you're like, but then backed off and kept.
Yeah. So the best wording that I've heard for it is they're called foxhole prayers. So every time I'd go to jail, of course I was looking for God because I want to get out of jail, right? So I pray, Lord, get me out this one more time. I promise it'll never happen again. Lord, just open up the gates one more time. Lord, I'll never do drugs again. I just got to get out. And I would pray, and I'd go to church, and I would say the words, and I would do the things, and then the gates would open up, and I'd walk out of jail or prison, and I might have a needle in my arm 3 days later because none of it meant anything to me, except for, my selfishness and self-centeredness. I didn't know what being a servant was. I didn't know what serving a God, a loving God, looked like. And everything was about self-serving and getting what I need right now, instant gratification, me, more. So yeah, I had God in my life, but I had a very reckless, toxic relationship with God because, I only used him for what I needed him for. And if I felt like I didn't get that, then it was, anger and hate. And, and then the few times that I felt like maybe a prayer did get answered, that was short-lived too, because, me.
Yeah. Man. All right. So when did it because I know the life it's repeat. It's really just we're starting the track back over. It's all, So at what point, did something happen specifically or, when God started really pulling on you?
So at 27, I went to prison for the first time. I did a year. And I think I had about 5 years between there where I stayed out of trouble at least, or at least out of prison. And then I finally caught a charge. It would have been around 2012, maybe. I started manufacturing meth, and I caught a charge on possession charge, and I did another year, and I was out 10 months, and then I got busted for manufacturing, and I got sentenced to 3 years. I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like I say, I did a year in prison. I got out, and it only took 10 months to get me right back to the place where I was at before. So I may have left out a little bit. So somewhere in my early 30s, I started doing heroin and meth, and then started manufacturing meth. And that's when I truly believe I gave up on life. Best case scenario, I do a shot of dope, I don't wake up tomorrow. And again, that would just bring more anger towards God, because the sad part was I would wake up and I would just think there's people dying every day of drug overdoses. Why do I still have, why God, why do I got to wake up every day to this life that I hate, this body that I hate, this person that I hate? I can't stand to look at myself in the mirror. I don't understand why I'm on this earth. And yet I do more drugs and I wake up every day. And the anger, just the person that I'd become, I wasn't a good person to be around. I was so paranoid and self-centered. My parents were gracious enough to let me live in their basement. And because I'm a selfish, self-centered person, I started cooking meth in the basement of their house. And my parents were elderly, and I had my girlfriend and I and our young son living with us. And I'm in the basement cooking meth because I'm so paranoid that I can't even leave my house anymore. Trigger warning. I'm going to say something that may be sensitive, but I do believe that it's important to this story. At the time, I was mixing heroin and meth, and I was sitting in my basement, and me and my girlfriend were so toxic that we would fight all night, and I would just do drugs and cook meth, and we'd fight more. And then, it was a whole thing. And we just got done fighting all night long, literally for hours. And I drew up, I mixed a big shot of heroin and meth together, and I drew it up into a syringe. And I did something that I never do. I took the needle and I set it down on my desk. And I kind of kicked back in my chair, and I was just like, why? And I had motion detector cameras outside, and I saw something go by the camera, and I thought, well, that's weird. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning. Who's pulling in the driveway, right? And about that time, I hear Clinton County Drug Task Force were coming in, and they kicked in the front door, the back door, the basement door, and they come in about 16 deep. And I tell that story because when I told my sponsor about that shot of dope that I set down, he said, that was the one. You know that, right? That was the one that was going to kill you. But God had bigger plans for you. God had bigger plans, and it took 16 officers kicking your door in to come in to make God's plan come to fruition. And I believe that. I truly believe that I was in a crossroads right there, that if I would have put that needle in my arm, I wouldn't have woke up. Sometimes the prayers we ask for don't always get answered the way we expect. And I didn't expect the drug task force to come in on me at 7 o'clock in the morning would be an answer to a prayer, but I thank Jesus every day that happened. So my aha moment was, I go to county jail, and I was sick. I was dope sick. I pretty much slept for the first couple weeks, and finally I was starting to get a little bit of my strength back up. And I was in Clinton County Jail, which isn't my hometown, and there was one guy from Highland County, actually a guy that I knew that was there. So we kind of clicked up together, and he woke me up one morning and says, hey man, it's Wednesday, and they do like this church service there. Do you want to get up and come? And I was like, no. What do you mean? Of course I don't want to go to church. Why would I want to go to church? And he goes, no, you don't understand. Like, I don't really want to go to church either, but if we go, we get to leave the pod for an hour and go over and socialize with other people from other pods. And really, that's really all it is. Like, nobody cares about the church. I was like, wow. Yeah, okay, why not? So, when you're in county jail, you're in a little fishbowl that that's just Groundhog Day. So anything that can kind of break up the monotony of it is always good. So I did. I went to church that day, and I go over, I sit, I'm irritable, I'm angry, I'm tired, I'm moody. And I don't remember the service. I don't remember any of the words. I don't even remember the preacher's name or what he looked like. But I do remember at the end of the service, he said, hey, would anybody like to be led to the sinner's prayer? And then I raised my hand. And he says, he come over and he laid his hand on me, and he led me through the sinner's prayer. And, I expected the lights to shine down and the angels to sing and, everything to just be like, wow, finally it all makes sense. This is it. And that didn't happen. What I did was I went back to my pod, and I laid down and I went to sleep. And from where I am today to that moment in time, I can go back and pinpoint certain areas, certain times where God has lined things up so perfect that moment in time had to have happened in order for me to be where I am today. And hands down, one of the greatest moments of my life was the day that I truly gave my life to Jesus.
And what day was that, Dustin? Do you know the date?
That was back in 2014. I don't remember the exact date. No, I wish I did. So that was when I was getting sentenced, and I'd been in county jail for probably a month or so. So my clean date is October 25th because that's the day they kicked the door in. So I'm gonna guess somewhere maybe November, December-ish. And that's been 11 years ago. Yeah. So again, pinpointing how God had to line things up. So from that moment, I get sentenced. And again, that may have been a foxhole prayer, because I'm like, okay, God, get me out of this, and I'll never do drugs again. And my answered prayer was not opening the doors. It was I got sentenced to 3 years mandatory in North Central prison. And when I get there, the orientation dorm was in a faith dorm. and I had never really done any program dorms or anything like that the whole time, every time I'd been in prison, because I really had no desire to change. And for some reason, going through that orientation dorm, kind of maybe God's got something for me in there. So a couple of the guys that I rode in with, we talked about it, and we signed up for it. And they said normally it was like a 3-month wait before you sign up to, and then they bring you back in. So again, God working in my favor, we were only out on the main compound for about 2 weeks, and I get a kite in the mail, and it said that I was being moved to the faith dorm. So, wow, that was a blessing in disguise, right? So I go over, and again, I'm thinking like, this is it. This is the aha moment. This is where God's going to start moving, right? And it wasn't. I was loud. We were obnoxious. We drank too much coffee. We told dirty jokes. I didn't know how to say a single sentence without dropping an F-bomb. And people absolutely hated us there, because I knew how to be a criminal. I knew how to be a prisoner, but I was clueless on how to be a Christian. So there was an older gentleman across the hallway, and he come over and he starts talking to me. He says, "Why are you here?" And I give him this spiel, well, I just want to change my life, and I want to do better. And he goes, "Yeah, no. I've heard all this before." And he goes, You're saying the right words, but you're not doing anything." And I said, "Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do." And he said, "It's because you don't know what you don't know." He said, "How about tomorrow morning we get up and we read a few verses from the Bible and we talk about it." So because of how my addict mind works, I'm looking for the angle, because, if manipulation runs deep in me, it's got to run deep in everybody else, right? So what is that for me? Right. What do you want from me? What's happening here? And I was a little standoffish. I didn't really, I don't connect with people. I don't trust people. So here this man is asking me to trust him, to let him tell me about Jesus. And all I can think about is protecting myself and saying, but why? And, it took a little bit of time for me to unravel all of that belief system that I had. And he understood it. He's seen it. He was a guy like me. He'd been places, he'd done things. He was actually serving 18 years he was serving 18 years for safe cracking, and he'd already been down 10 years of it. So he wasn't what I, in my mind, thought a Christian looked like. My Christians always had suits and patent leather shoes and always wore the nice tie, and this guy didn't look like that. He looked like me. He was tatted up. He was, a little rough around the edges, a little broken, and yet he knew who Jesus was. So I started letting my guard down a little bit, and every morning we would get up, and he got up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and would start reading his Bible. So by the time I woke up a couple hours later, he'd already have like 3 or 4 scriptures written down on a piece of paper, and it's sitting on my desk. So little by little, he just started pouring into me and started breaking down those walls, breaking down those barriers of that selfishness and self-centeredness that I lived in, and started just showing me what true discipleship looked like. And he was truly my Paul, the Paul to my Timothy. He instilled into me what true discipleship looked like, and I'll never forget that guy. And he's still locked up. We're still in connection.
Okay. I was going to ask, like, it's been a while. You said 18 years. Like he should be.
Yeah, he's getting close. He's got just a little bit longer left, but he's. I would say that man has done more in prison than a lot of people in the streets have done. Just pouring into people, because I was just one of the many disciples that I've seen that guy work with.
It's in the Bible. Paul wrote a lot, most critical scriptures from prison, from the perspective of no option. You're just there, and it's in front of you. Man, that is encouraging. But I need to connect the dots. So So you're being discipled in prison. You leave. You get out. It's been 12 years, sobriety date and everything. So how did you know you were called to ministry? You're now running the drop-in center and a Celebrate Recovery group, and you got lots of stuff going on. Connect those kind of dots a little bit
Okay. Well, I want to hit on one more little thing from the prison years before we go to there, because this is very pivotal in my life. So I did 3 years in prison, and I'd gotten pretty serious my first year in, and I like I say, my mom and dad were my biggest targets. Very manipulative to them. I used, abused. Like I say, I was cooking meth in their house. I was not a son. I was I was not a good person. 22 years of addiction. My mom and dad stood by my side, loved me through times that most people wouldn't have, in and out of jails, the things that I've lied to them. I was never really a thief because manipulation was my tactic. So I just knew the right words that I could use to get them to give me money. So when I was in prison, there was they were going to do a baptism, and the pastor come out and he said, look, this is very serious. I want you guys to take like a 6-week course. And then after the 6-week course, and you understand what baptism is, then we're going to do the baptism in the prison church. So I took the course, and I found out the reason of baptism and what it was all about. And there in a church in North Central, I was baptized. And they actually screamed so loud when they were baptized, and I think there was like 8 of us that got baptized that day. And everybody in the church, the pastor said, look guys, you guys hoop and holler at sports, you'll scream for anything. Like, this is a pivotal moment in these guys' life, and we're gonna raise the roof tonight. We're gonna scream as loud as we can, because every time one of these men get dipped in water, the gates of hell is crying, and heaven is rejoicing. So he says, let's just get live here. And they were screaming, and they had 3 or 4 COs come running in to make sure there wasn't a riot going on in the church, just because that was so impactful for everybody in that moment. So I go back to my dorm, and I call my mom. I call home, and I said, Mom, I'm really taking this thing serious. Like I believe God's doing something in my life, and I don't know what it's going to look like, but God's doing something amazing. And for the first time in at least 22 years, maybe longer, my mom said, I always knew you had it in you, son. I'm proud of you. And I'm a failure. I'm a liar. I'm a manipulator. I'm a nobody. I don't even feel comfortable in my own skin. And for the first time, my mom says she's proud of me. So that was a great, great day in my life. And then exactly 10 days later, the prison chaplain come walking into the dorm, and I see him coming, down the hallways, and I think, oh wait, that's the pastor that just baptized me. Wow, this is going to be great. Maybe he'll say hi to me, right? And so I see him walking down the aisleways, and he's looking for somebody. He's got a little paper in his hand, and he's looking at numbers, looking at jail cells, and I'm like, wow, pastor, he's coming towards me. Maybe he's going to stop and talk to me. And he's walking down my aisleway, and I'm kind of perking up, because I'm like, I finally feel like the pastor's going to stop and say hi to me. And he does. He stops right in front of me, and he says, Dustin? I said, yeah. And he goes, your mom passed away today. And I was so angry at God in my past. And I went and I made a phone call, and I called my brother, and I talked to him. And when I got back to my dorm, like I say, it was a faith dorm. There was a lot of men of faith there, and probably about 10 men gathered around me, and they said, come on, let's go pray. And they pulled me into a room, and this is unheard of in prison. Anybody that has been to prison, you'll understand this. The CO allowed us to go into a room where there's no cameras, because he saw the severity of the situation. Like I'm a man that's on the verge of breaking down. My mom was my best friend. Even though I manipulated her, like, she was my rock. She was there for me. So they pulled me into a room. These guys prayed over me. I like to say they went to war for me. Like, they called down the fire of heaven over me. And we laughed. We cried. We told stories. And in that moment, I just felt a peace come over me. And even though I'd lost my mom, I gained Jesus. And I seen what true brotherhood looked like. I seen what true discipleship looked like, and I knew that that was something that I wanted to continue. So I come out and I called my dad and I talked to him, and my dad and I never really had a true relationship because, again, selfishness and self-centeredness. And I said, Dad, I don't know what to do. I lost mom. And, where do I go from here? And he said, well, how about you call me? So, you're allowed a phone call, a 20-minute phone call while you're in prison. So I would call my dad every couple of days, and we talked. And the first couple of weeks, it was like, well, how's the weather? Have you watched anything on TV? Like, we had no idea how to talk to each other, right? We were clueless. And within a few months, like, it got to the point where it was like he was telling me about his childhood, and, motorcycles he built and cars that he had, and I missed out on an entire lifetime of knowing who my father was because I chose drugs and alcohol over my family. And man, I got to build this amazing relationship with my dad, and I got 10 months of that, and then my dad passed away too. So I lost both of my parents while I was in prison, and I still tell people, hands down, best 3 years of my life, because I met Jesus there, and I got to, in some small way, make my parents proud, and they saw the changes in me and who I am today. So that was very pivotal and very important. If anybody out there has amends to make to their parents, I strongly recommend doing that, because we never know. We're not promised tomorrow. And I just thank Jesus every day that I got to talk to my parents, get to know them, and let them know that, I was the son that they wanted, and not the manipulator that they got. So, where does that tie into where I am today?
Yeah, just leaving that. Let that moment be for a second.
Okay.
I can relate. My dad passed away 2 years ago from fast cancer, and I when you're saying that, I'm just I know what you mean, because me and my dad was right.
Yeah.
Before God, we were both right and apologetic, and I couldn't imagine trying to look back and be like, I didn't make it. I know. It's your testimony.
Huh.
All right. But I agree, Dustin. All right. So I guess you asked the question, how does that tie in?
Yeah. So like I say, my mom was my rock. I called her once a week or so when I was in prison, and not just that time, but every time I've been locked up, she was the one she was my link to the outside. And I lost her, and then I started calling my dad, and my dad and I built this amazing relationship, and then I lose him. So I called my brother, and I'm talking to him, and I'm telling him, like, I lost mom, and then I lost dad, and I just don't know what to do now. And my brother said, well, how about you call me? So my brothers and I, because I was the drug addict, they were great men, great careers, great families. They never went the route that I did. So when I went towards drugs and alcohol, they just kind of turned away from me because they had to protect their families. And I understand that completely. So for the first time in my life, I'm building this relationship with my brother now. And so I would call him, once a week or every couple of weeks. And before you know it, it was like every day. And again, we're building something that we never had. So it's kind of awkward at first. And then kind of played into just a great friendship, a friendship that I never had before. I'd never known. So when I got out of prison, I didn't have any place to go. My mom and dad were gone, and I really didn't have any money. I didn't have any. So my brother let me come and stay with him for a few months. And we started going to Solid Rock Church in Monroe. And my brother is part of a motorcycle ministry called the Steel Disciples. And I knew I wanted to be in ministry. I knew God was calling me to something great, and I didn't know what that was going to look like. So I said, man, I think I'm being called to a motorcycle ministry. And just so you understand how crazy that sounds, I'm 40 years old and I've never been on a motorcycle in my life. I've never ridden a dirt bike. I've never ridden a motorcycle. No concept of it, right? And here God's calling me to a ministry that involves motorcycles. So, I prayed about it and I talked to my brother, and we did. We went out and we looked for bikes, and saved up a little bit of money, and I bought a Harley Sportster, and I started ministering with a motorcycle ministry, and that was the launch of my ministry. And those guys poured a lot into me and showed me. We were ministering to the biker community, which is a lot of brokenness, a lot of drugs, a lot of and the motorcycle allowed me to go places that I normally wouldn't have been able to go to, and connect with people that, again, people look like me, tattoos and broken backgrounds and drugs and alcohol. And I was able to just minister to those guys and let them know that, change is possible, and Jesus is that change. So that was the segue from where I was in prison to my first steps into ministry.
Okay. And what you're currently doing now.
Yes.
And let's touch Cobblestone first, and then I'll put that. We'll kind of lay in the plane after that with the drop in.
Okay. So with Cobblestone,
are you Pastor Dustin?
I am a servant leader at Cobblestone Church. I've been called many things, but right now I self-titled as a servant leader. I'm waiting for that title, so God will give it to me eventually. But right now, that's where I want to stand at. Is I'm nothing more than a servant leader. But what God has brought me to is, so I've been part of several ministries, and we've done a lot of outreaches, a lot of places, a lot of different things, and I've met so many great people that's in ministry. And once you're involved in those circles, everybody knows everybody, or you've ministered with them, or you've done an outreach with somebody, and there's just, God has put so many people in my life. And again, I think back to that childhood. I never felt like I belonged. Like the genres of people that went to my high school, I just didn't fit in with the cliques. I didn't fit in. And all of a sudden I'm hanging out with these Jesus freaks and these guys that are just like jumping up and down and screaming for Jesus. And I'm like, oh, these are my people. That's why I didn't fit in anywhere else, because I needed Jesus in my life to understand who I was, so I can understand who my people were and where I fit into this whole madness of life. And so the people that God's brought into my life, man, I just love them, and it's been such a blessing. But I say all that to say, we were doing an outreach in Hamilton, and I meet this guy, and he is just outspoken and eccentric, and just this big, tall, tattooed guy, and his name is Tony. And I meet this guy, and we hit it off right from the get-go, right? So we're supposed to scour the streets of Hamilton and invite people to this tent revival. And so him and I partner up, and we hit the streets, and we're praying for people, and we're just ministering. And this guy's just, like I say, instant brothers, right? So he's from Alabama. So he goes back to Alabama. Him and I stay in contact with each other. About 8 months later, he says, hey man, I'm moving back to Ohio. We need to hook up. We need to do something together. I'm like, yeah, great. So he makes it back to Ohio. We're messaging back and forth, and he starts telling me about this church called Cobblestone. He's like, you got to come to Cobblestone. You got to meet this pastor. Like, this man is great. This is an awesome church. So life happens, right? So every Sunday something would come up, and I wouldn't make it to church, and I'd go to another church, or we would have an outreach someplace. And so finally I decide, you know what, I'm just going to commit. So tomorrow I'm getting up, I'm going to Cobblestone Church, I'm seeing my buddy Tony, I'm going to hang out. So I go to Cobblestone Church, and it's the one day that Tony misses church and he's not there. So everybody that I'm meeting, I'm like, hey, I'm looking for my buddy Tony. And they're like, well, Tony's not here today, but who are you? So I get to talking to people, and this guy comes up, and just real encouraging and jolly and happy and joyful. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm also the pastor here." And I could just feel the love off of him, like just to meet a complete stranger and just welcome him. And he was such a great introduction to that church and to meet the pastor like that. So I give him a little rundown about my testimony, who I am, where I've come from, what God's brought me through, and that I'm a part of Celebrate Recovery out of the Village Church. And he says, "Wow, I've heard about those. I wonder what it would take to get a Celebrate Recovery into Cobblestone." And I said, "Well, we could sit down and we could talk about it." And, and he said, "Man, I'd love to do that. I'd love to make that happen." So sometimes people say things to make conversation, and then you see them again and are like, "Oh, yeah, we'll do that some other time." And I understand that. I do it too. I think everybody does it. We just want to connect with people. But the funny part about when Pastor Rick said this, the next time I went to his church and my buddy Tony was there, and he was like, "Hey, you haven't called me. We haven't sat down and talked about this." I was like, "Oh, you really meant that wasn't just conversation. Like, you really meant you want to start a Celebrate Recovery at your church." And it's like, 100%. Like, what do we got to do to make it happen? So Tony and myself and Pastor Rick sat down, and we started putting pen to paper and seeing what that would look like and what it would take to launch that. And with the help of the Village Church and several other people, we were able to get a Celebrate Recovery off the ground there. Pastor Rick was great. He didn't try to micromanage it. He didn't try to, overstep his bounds. He said, "No, you guys know what you're doing. Do what needs to happen." And he's given us full run of his church. We do a Celebrate Recovery on Monday evenings at 6:30. Is our we serve a meal at 6:30. Our small group our large group starts at 7, and then we'll have a testimony or a lesson, and then we'll have a small group after that. For me, Celebrate Recovery has changed my life. It has given me purpose. It's given me a place to belong. And again, like I say, for somebody that never felt comfortable in their own skin, this is a place where I can be with just broken people just like me who's trying to figure life out. And but what that looks like is or how Cobblestone tied into all that. Pastor Rick, once we got the Celebrate Recovery off the ground, we were talking one day, and again, this may have been me just making conversation. Pastor Rick said, "Well, where do you see your future? What do you see happening?" And I said, "I don't know. Man, I would like to preach sometime." And he goes, "Okay, awesome. When do you want me to schedule you?" And I said, "Oh, no. You don't understand. Like, I'm not really a good speaker or anything like that." And he goes, "Nope, you said it. What do we got to do to get that off the ground?" And I said, "Oh man, I don't know. Give me a couple weeks so we can get something written." And that man trusted me, and he put me on. He put me up there at the podium and let me preach for the first time. And again, I've never had people who cared and loved me and poured into me, other than my few mentors that I had in prison and now Pastor Rick. And if your church, if anybody's church, if your pastor isn't pouring into you like that, I've been to mega churches where, the pastor doesn't even know your first name. This is a small church, man. We have a small congregation, but I'll tell you what, pastor knows everybody and probably has everybody's phone number on speed dial. Such a great man of God. And if I could model myself after anybody, it would be Pastor Rick. And so that's Cobblestone's my heart. Cobblestone is where our Celebrate Recovery is at. I've preached there several times. He's just allowed so much to happen for a guy who felt like a nobody his whole life. He's really encouraged me and built me up and made me feel like I'm accepted and belong, and I appreciate it there.
If you're in obviously, if you're watching this, I'm going to put it back on the screen. Sorry, clear my throat. So this Monday, and it's every Monday, but it's Memorial Day this week. There's a barbecue. Here's the information. I'll post that along with this tomorrow, so it'll just be an attachment there. So, what's that? 6:30 meal serve this Monday. Dustin's the leader.
So typically we start at 6:30, but because of Memorial Day, we will start at 5:30. We'll have some cornhole and some other games out there to play. So, and we just want to connect with the community and build strong bonds and strong relationships with people. So,
Cool.
but that's just for Memorial Day. Normally it does start at 6:30. Yes.
Well, heck yeah, and we'll get into more stuff. It sounds like we have a lot to talk about, but let's move on to what's going on. I guess tomorrow. Well, actually, you know what? Let's we'll take it off for just a second. Why don't you tell us? I guess a little bit more, like 2 minutes of drop-in center, and then we'll.
Yeah, sure. So I am the manager and peer support specialist at the Whole Truth Ministries Drop-In Center. That's on 1804 East 3rd Street in Dayton, Ohio. So what we do here is we allow men to come in off the streets to get out of the elements, to get cooled off in the summer, warm in the winter, out of the rain yesterday. And we just want to love on the community. So it is a men's drop-in center. So we are partnered with Sidewalk Soldiers. If women come up, we take them to Sidewalk Soldiers, but we specifically cater to men. So the men are able to come in and they have a safe space to just hang out. We have donuts in the morning. We have a hot meal at noon. We do teach a Bible study, usually around 2 o'clock. That's really become a big hit that these guys are really starting to enjoy. But we just want to love them like Jesus would. We just want to, no condemnation, no shame, no guilt. Come as you are. We know there's drugs in the community. We know there's things going on. You know what? We look beyond that. We want to see, we want to know where we fit into their life to make them better, to change their life, to promote them, to get them to where they need to be. So we do offer peer support counseling. And then we do also have ties with all the sober livings, detox, rehabs. When they're ready, I know not everybody's ready the first time they come in, but we have built rapport with you guys, and we've gotten 4 people off the streets into detox, into rehab, and that's what makes all this such a rewarding job and a great place. But like I say, we just
it's stirring the pot with other churches and other organizations are like starting to pick up on it. So it's not just it's not what we're doing there. People are finding out about it, and we've got like last weekend and then next week. I know I've got that Miamisburg Revival. Some of their evangelists are going to come down to see you, and so a lot of people are taking note, of what's going on 3rd Street down there. So
and everything that we're doing here is through donations. So the clothes we hand out, the shower, the hygiene items that we have, all that's been donated by the community. So it's the community loving on the community, and just trying to find a place where, like I say, we just want these guys to feel seen, heard, and respected. And that's kind of a common thing. Even in my own life, I never felt like I belonged anywhere. And this is kind of like our clubhouse, man. This is just where guys belong. And
I pop in there like almost I just come in there for like an hour every day, pretty much. Sometimes longer. So man, I love it. You said it best. I'm like in the well. It's called the well, right? So the well is, imagine if the well in the biblical moment of the story, you had like a covering over the well with a refrigerator and a couch. And that's where you're going. And so that's that 1804 Main Street. If you want to learn more, reach out. Here's an event that's going on. I'm going to say tomorrow, but it's Saturday. And so come out. Fearless Church and Whole Truth are partnering up for a community outreach event. So anything you want to say about that before we peel off, I guess?
Just between 9 a.m. and 12. Again, we're just going to love on the community. So if you're a part of a church or part of an organization, a ministry, and you just want to come and help us serve and help us love on the community, we're going to hand out flyers. We're going to be serving burgers and dogs. And like I say, prayer. We always love praying for people. So that's kind of our focus point. But if you know anybody in the homeless community or someone that just needs to get a little Jesus in their life, invite them, bring them down, bring a busload, bring a carload, man. We just want to serve. We just want to love on the community. And we just want people to know that they are loved here. Like I say, we just want to love people like Jesus would. We look beyond their addictions. We look beyond their situations. We know what their situation is not who they are, that they are a child of God. and we're going to love them where they're at. So if you want to come and be a part of that, man, we would sure love to have you.
Cool. That'll be on our page as well on Saturday morning. That last 10 minutes of conversation would not have existed if the moment in jail didn't happen for you. You know,
yes.
So it's a blessing that the Lord allows us to keep going through obedience. He blesses us. Do you have any final words like about your story, or we covered a lot, man?
Yeah. There's a lot there. The verse that sticks out to me that really kind of solidifies my life is 2 Corinthians 5:17. It says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation. And to take me from the guy that I used to be, who was a liar, a manipulator, low self-esteem, low self-worth, I just hated my own skin, and I couldn't stand to be anything. I couldn't stand to be myself. I had to be on drugs or alcohol just to exist. To a guy who has now got 11 years clean and sober. I'm a manager and peer support specialist at Whole Truth. I am a servant leader at Cobblestone Church. I am a leader at the Celebrate Recovery. I feel like God has catapulted me from that person that I used to be into this great and amazing transformation that I am today. And it's only through Christ, through Jesus, that I'm here, and that I'm the person I am today, because I was a failure. I was a nobody. But through Jesus, I have my community. I have my people. Our T-shirts at our Celebrate Recovery say "No perfect people allowed," and that really kind of just is who we are. We don't expect you to be perfect when you come to us. We don't expect you to be perfect when you walk with us for a year or 12 years, or we just expect you to love Jesus and let Jesus love on you, and let that transformation just start to happen. So who I am today is only a byproduct of stepping into my purpose with Jesus, and I've totally become that new creation. I'm something brand new. I look back on my old life, and I can't even imagine. It's almost like telling this story was me telling you a story of somebody that I once knew, and I've heard these stories before about him, and I really feel sorry for that guy, because I just can't connect with that person that I used to be, because Jesus has made me something brand new, literally.
Yeah, forget that guy.
Right.
Forget that guy. Well, you heard it from Dustin. I don't really feel like I need to add anything, man. Your heart is, we went on that men's trip with and I believe those 2 meals we sat there, I was supposed to sit next to you, because honestly, since then things have been a little bit better. And brother, you're a great example. You're a mentor to every person around you, brother. I mean that. Cool.
Well, thank you. So if you don't mind, I would like to pray.
Bro, pray over. Do it.
So Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, if anyone is hearing my voice and is reaching for you, Heavenly Father, I just pray that you just start highlighting things in their life, Lord. I ask you to just open their spiritual eyes and ears to anything you have for them, Lord. I ask for, Lord, that you just start showing them the man that they are designed to be, Lord, that everything in your kingdom is perfect and made whole and righteous. So, Lord, I just thank you right now for new creations being formed, Lord, that if you could transform me, you are no respecter of persons, and you can transform each and every person that is under the sound of my voice right now. So I just pray warring angels and chariots of fire to protect them as they step into that calling, as they step into that purpose, as they find their people, Lord. I just thank you and praise you that they are protected, they are sealed, and they are made whole. So, Lord, we just thank you for the blood of Jesus. We thank you for what you did on the cross, and we thank you for the finished works. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, brother. All right, Pastor Dustin. You guys have a great rest of the day and weekend, and we'll see you over the weekend. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.